All right, welcome to this debate. Well, China has issued a warning to the US to depart immediately from the South China Sea. And a clip from an international broadcaster on board the US naval ship shows a warning coming in from the Chinese officials who repeatedly asked the US military to depart from the South China Sea. The US responded saying that it's carrying out lawful military operations in international airspace or waters. This warning by China comes amid heightened tensions between the US and China in the South China Sea, and global spectators are expecting a short term war rather in this area as early as the month of September, ahead of the November polls in the United States. What's interesting is that reportedly China wants de escalation in the South China Sea and has ordered its officers to not fire the first shot. It now remains to be seen if the US will de escalate or will China have to face war. We'll talk about this with our guest. Joining me on the panel is Professor Madhav Nalapa, the editorial director of the Sunday Guardian, Vice Admiral Shekhar Sinha, former Chief Integrated Defense Staff, Western Naval Command, Lieutenant General PJS Pannu, former Deputy Chief of the IDS, is here with us as well. Wing Commander Praful Bakshi, former chief spokesperson for the IAF, MOD fighter pilot as well, is here with us. And we'll also have Major General Dhruv Katoch, defense and strategic expert, director of India Foundation, joining us very soon. Professor Nalapat, let me come to you. Is this considered to be posturing on behalf of the United States, or do you think that they really want China to bite the bit?
Well, I'd like to say, Rishabh, that in this case, all that the United States is doing is to basically act in accordance with international law. I mean, to say that the South China Sea belongs to China because of its name would be as illogical as saying the Indian Ocean belongs to India because of the name Indian Ocean, or that Indochina has to be shared between India and China because it is Indochina. The reality of the situation is all that the US is doing and other navies are doing is basically act in accordance with international law. What the Chinese are doing is in accordance with the law as of their country, which essentially says that whatever we say is Chinese territory, ipso facto, by that fact alone, becomes Chinese territory, and therefore South China Sea is Chinese territory, and you have no business there. So, very frankly, I don't think the onus is on the US. I think the onus is on China to understand that South China Sea is part of the global commons. And as Prime Minister Modi says, there has to be free and easy navigation all across these waters.
Absolutely, Professor Nalapat. But this is Vineet, not Rishabh. But I'm sure it's all right. Rishabh would have asked you the same question. Admiral Sinha, let me cut across to you now, sir. What do you make of the situation, which is transpiring in the South China Sea? Obviously, the US is peeved at China for COVID-19 and a number of other reasons, what's going on in Hong Kong. But at the same time, could this be a part of Donald Trump's theatrics right before the elections? Or do you really think there is a metal to this move?
Well, thank you, Vinit, for getting me on the program with Professor Nalapat and Wing Commander Bakshi, General Pannu. My sense is that this is a very standard warning which China gives to every ship and aircraft which are transiting through the South China Sea, while sticking to the international laws of the sea. And this is not new. In fact, they had intercepted a P-8I in which the then PACOM, Harry Harris himself was flying. So therefore, this is really not something unusual. They have also told Indian Navy ship, which was leaving the harbor from Vietnam and heading for Russian port, passing through the South China Sea. They said that you must leave the South China Sea waters immediately. But this is a very standard sort of bully, which he gives because he's supposed to give if he considers it his own waters, which is not the case because the rest of the world does not agree to that. So and this has happened last week. If something had to happen, this should have happened by now. So I would think that, this is just one of those, posturing to make a point to everybody that South China Sea belongs to us, to the Chinese, which is not the case.
Right, and Wing Commander Bakshi, there have been 10 US warship in transit in the Taiwanese Strait just alone in 2020. But so far, China has only issued verbal warnings. They haven't fired a single shot. And what we got to know today as well, that China has told all its security agencies and the Navy to not be the first one to attack. Are these warnings going to be taken seriously by the United States? And if not, do you think that the US aggression in this part of the world is only going to escalate as the elections draw near?
First thing, we talk in terms of this warning. Let me tell you one thing, Chinese have been giving these sort of warnings, air warnings a number of times. If you remember the incident, one P-3C Orion was zoomed by a Chinese fighter. His wing actually touched the Orion and the fighter had to force land in the water. He got captured by the Taiwanese and the aircraft, the Orion returned. Now this was the closest they came to be aggressive because they have not fired a shot. They may, sort of bully the smaller countries, but with America, they're not going to take any chance like this. But let me tell you one thing, America knows that though it's all, blunt and this is all fake bluster going on, but America is also treading very carefully in this game because it can flare up and it cannot then retrieve its step. So once having committed itself, it will have to go through all the way. So that is why America wants to finish its commitment by elections, because after elections, Trump doesn't know what happened, whether these forces are retained in this South China Sea or they return back. It depends upon the next victor in the election. Question is this, that China is prepared, all right, but China does not want to commit in itself because it knows it has no chance with so many navies, so many submarines and aircraft carrier, because once the shot is fired, then everybody is committed. India is committed also, let us face that, and it will be a sort of a signal for us to start our action on the Ladakh, and it will be a signal for Pakistan to keep out of the whole thing. That everything will be, now it will just, go like rolling pins. So this is going to happen if a single shot is fired. That is why America is very careful, but very firm.
General Panu, even Mike Pompeo said that anything that China claims in the South China Sea is unlawful. According to the South China Sea Arbitral Tribunal, it was also decided that China has no claims, based on the international law in this territory. But yet, China has been issuing these standard warnings time and again. What do you think is going on right now when it comes to the US strategy of curtailing Chinese aggression in this part of the world? So you'll have to unmute yourself. So we can't hear you. No, sir, we still can't hear you. You'll have to unmute yourself, sir. No, there seems to be a audio problem. We'll try and get that rectified. But let me also pick up a question from Professor Nalapad in the meantime. Professor Nalapad, how important is it going to be for the US to, come up with a coalition also if it has to deal with China in South China Sea? Because obviously the disadvantages of going to war or any kind of an aggression in that part of the world so close to China, you need friends.
Well, I'd like to point out, frankly, that China has been very successful so far. It has created some islands, it has occupied some islands, it has built military structures, and very importantly, it has blocked several countries, including India, from basically prospecting for the immense riches of the South China Sea. If you remember, Vietnam is a traditional friend of India's right from the beginning, and we were lawfully prospecting in Vietnam, in waters which belong to Vietnam, and the Chinese have stopped that particular activity from taking place. So the Chinese are basically blocking anyone else from exploiting this particular territory. They want it all to themselves. They don't want the Vietnamese, they don't want the Malaysians, they don't want the Indonesians, they certainly don't want the Indians. They only want themselves. And the point is very simple. They have succeeded so far mainly because people have, well, they have talked a bit here and there, but nothing much has been done, frankly, to confront them. This kind of a situation, I don't know how long it's going to continue. I mean, about the election in the US, my guess is China doesn't want Donald Trump to come back. And China believes that Biden is going to be much more friendly to China. One of the reasons being that Biden's son has been, employed by Chinese companies for quite some time and at a very, very high salary. But so that I think is their point. So China certainly would not like to give rise to any incident which will boost Donald Trump in the elections, because any confrontation with China will go to the advantage of the more hawkish candidate, who's certainly Donald Trump.
Admiral Sinha, China has always bullied nations in and around the South China Sea. And, they have denied them the rights to fishing and natural resources. So whatever is going on right now in the South China Sea, you think it does have some basis in what's supposed to be done with China and how to thwart their aggression and let other countries also utilize the minerals and resources found in this part of the world?
No, you're right. Because if China says that it is all my territory, and he also claims that I have an exclusive economic zone of 200 nautical miles around all those artificial structures, then obviously it is the entire South China Sea, which is not the case. The ruling given by the International Court of Justice is very clear. In case of the Fiery Cross, which we discussed last time, I think that in Fiery Cross it's a rock. It was a rock which was reef underwater in high water. It was not visible, but they have built almost 270 hectares of land. They've got the full-fledged headquarters of the military of the entire South China Sea. They have an airfield. They have, 20 hardened shelters for aircraft. 46 fighter aircraft can operate. They can be parked in the hangar, and it has got a small port. So, if even by that, ICJ says that it does not have any claim beyond 12 miles because it is not an island. It is just a rock and reef. So China claims that it is because of the EZ, he has claim over all the natural resources which lie underwater in 200 miles, and therefore they require permission. So this is absolute atrocity. Firstly, it was not yours. Secondly, it is a rock, you're calling it an island. And thirdly, you're saying you'll have an EZ of 200 nautical miles. As per the existing law we need, and per the UNCLOS, of which China is also a signatory, around a rock or a reef, if it is around the rock and the reef, if it is in somebody else's EZ, he only enjoys 12 nautical miles territorial water outside around that rock and doesn't enjoy any other continental shelf, does not enjoy any EZ. So firstly, he's in somebody else's territory, and secondly, he's claiming that it is an island. So I think it is, it's far too much of a claim. Off late to Philippines, because Philippines has not made too much of noise about the mischief reef. He has allowed the Filipino the fishing boats to come and fish somewhere close to that island, which actually belonged to the Filipinos. So I think this is absolutely, in Hindi, what you can say, the total dadagiri and nothing more than that.
General Pannu, I hope you can hear me and I can hear you this time.
Yeah, I just want to check. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear, sir. So 25 years of neutrality on behalf of the United States. The big question everybody is going to ask: why now? Obviously, you can't just blame COVID-19 for US acting the way it is.
Vineet, in last 25 years, if you see the rise of China graph economically and militarily, it has revised its policies of expansion. It went into Belt and Road, and also militarily, it has been claiming larger and larger areas, and you see its open belligerence, which it is supporting and actively participating in. And we, sitting in India, obviously, are now a direct, country which is under its impact of belligerence. Similarly, it is also Taiwan, where the aerial activity is taking place from China, and in the South China Sea, the kind of domination that the Chinese Navy has started with, of course, Admiral Shekhar Sinha explaining the rock and reef concept that, you just keep, claiming these scrubs over, in the water and keep expanding. Now, seeing the expansion, actually, Admiral Sinha would be able to elaborate more on that. If you really see, a few years back, the US had actually literally stepped back, left the Pacific Ocean and this area entirely to ASEAN and the other countries who are there. When the Indo-Pacific concept came into being, because, well, that there is a commonality of seas in that area, and the number of nations which use these two nations are also common. Having said that, there was a sudden vacuum which got created, and China exploited that vacuum, taking number of contracts all over in these countries, building airports and airstrips, not only for itself, also with other countries, going through giving them soft loans and making them hostage through economy, and literally blackmailing them into an alliance. And ASEAN, unfortunately, soft-paddled the entire issue and also really stepped back. I remember somebody saying in ASEAN that we are not going to fight over scrubs. Obviously, when you get money in lieu of that, why would you fight over scrubs? As a result, when China expanded to a point, the Americans, who have been stakeholders, in fact, they have a number of bases in Japan. They are, in a way, neighbors of China from the Pacific and South China Sea, point of view. So when a neighbor starts expanding and neighbor does not understand peace, that the Americans stepped back for a while and they went all over berserk, claiming the territories, making artificial claims, disrespecting and disregarding all the international treaties, UNCLOS, or even air defense zones. Nothing was respected. So what do you expect in an expansionist mode? Who do you think is going to stop the expansion of China? Obviously, certain neighbors, and who can stand up to it. And that is exactly what's happening now.
Yeah, absolutely. And at this point in time, Major General Dhruv Katoch also joins us. General Katoch, we're talking about China and US and the possibility of an imminent war. But, the question still arises that, whatever rhetorics that we have seen from the United States, are they good enough to come up with a coalition in East Asia? Because obviously, Donald Trump's America First policy and his hot and cold approach to China, they had a trade deal just last year, is, a little baffling for countries in that part of the world to support America at this point in time. Can they go to war against China alone?
Thank you, Vineet, and sorry for getting in late. As far as the United States is concerned, I think it is not what the US will do. It is what the coalition partners will do. And I think each of these coalition partners today are very concerned as to the way in which China is reacting, in which the South China Sea is concerned. And I think all of them are going to get together. And so to that extent, to say it's going to be dependent on the policies of President Trump or otherwise, I don't think that is going to matter now. What has really happened in the South China Sea now is that the threatening noises being made by China have left the United States in no position but to counter. And now the side which pulls back first will be the side which loses face. I don't see the Americans pulling back, and I don't see the Chinese pulling back. So I think that we are headed for a very critical situation, and how both these countries handle it for the moment, that we will see. But the larger point which I see here is that if all the other forces, the democratic forces as we call them, for them to join up hands, I don't visualize a problem there. I think the Chinese are in for very serious trouble. It will not be confined to the South China Sea. It is going to extend to the Malacca Straits and beyond, right up to the Strait of Hormuz. So the Chinese cannot get away with thinking it is just if it comes to a conflict, it will be restricted only to the South China Sea. Even if it is restricted to the South China Sea, I think when it comes to a naval engagement, the Chinese will get the worst of it.
All right. Wing Commander Bakshi wants to make a point. Go ahead, sir.
I was trying to tell you that when we talk in terms of islands and the reefs, etc., when Oxford 1913, when the laws of the seas was being written for final, that everything was defined in that. In fact, somewhere there were a lot of other constructions which people had tried to make through woods, etc. We're trying to claim it as their territory. That question will not arise. None of the countries will take to it. And the question is, America does not even have to ask for coalition to form. The coalition is already formed. Let me tell you one thing. Mentally, all the countries are with them, with America, and they are actually wanting to solve the problem. Because if America backs out without fight, then the problem remains there to be faced by everybody. So they are very happy to finish the job once for all and not to postpone it for some 10 years or 12 years when the political situation will totally change. And for India, it is most important that we should now start thinking in overall operations, etc., because we are the most affected party in this whole game.
Professor Nalapat, this permanent, hardening of the US policy towards China without prior consultation with the rest of the countries, do you think it's going to make life harder if Joe Biden is voted into power for the United States?
Well, I'd like to say that the Chinese apparently think so, and they base it on past performance. But as you've seen with Donald Trump, for example, past performance is not a guide to future action. So I agree with my friends in the armed forces that the Chinese are going to be very disappointed if they believe that Joe Biden is going to be a walkover. And as for Senator Kamala Harris, I know some of the people who are close to her, and I can tell you they are extremely hawkish on China. The same can't be said for Joe Biden, but certainly Senator Harris, the people around her are very hawkish on China. So I think the Chinese are going to be in for a shock. My point is, Vineet, as has very correctly been said by Wing Commander Bakshi, the reality is everybody remembers what happened in the 1930s. You had the United States, you had Britain, you had France, downsized their militaries, and some countries even destroyed a lot of their army, a lot of their navy. They destroyed their weapons, their ships. And one country during this time was rebuilding and building and super building in advance of any agreement. They didn't care for agreements. And that country, well, finally, that country created such a huge problem that every country had to combine. So I don't think anybody wants to repeat the 1930s. The only point is, at what point will this be stopped? The fact that the South China Seas is part of the global commons, there's no point just saying it and then basically obeying the Chinese and not doing any activity in that area. Forget naval activity, show the flag, go there, disappear. I'm talking about, exploiting the ocean floor, exploiting the economic zones of Vietnam and other countries, together with those countries, exploiting the economic zone of Philippines and recognizing their legitimate rights and basically doing that. Once you have Indian, European, American, Japanese, and other companies doing that, and companies whose activities are protected by their navies, then I would like to believe that the 1930s will not come back. But as of now, Vineet, it's all been a lot of hot air. And in the part of the Chinese, I can tell you, very, very strong action on the ground. A lot of strong words and strong action. In the case of the coalition, a lot of symbolic action, which is a lot of sound and fury, as Shakespeare says, meaning nothing.
Right, just a minute left into the broadcast. We'll get quick reactions from Admiral Sinha, General Katoch, and General Panu, and then we wrap up. Admiral Sinha, let's start with you, sir. Only a minute left, so 20 seconds is all we can accord right now.
Well, I think the situation is certainly very, very tense, and what is going to happen is anybody's guess. But sooner it happens, better it is for the world.
General Katoch?
I think the time for fiddling around is over. The time has come when we have to say there is a problem on hand, and we will deal with the problem. And I think all the democratic forces should get together now and say if China is doing this, we will not stop them tomorrow. We will not stop them day after. We are going to stop them today. We are going to stop them now.
Right. General Panu?
The Chinese bluff has to be called, as soon as possible by the US staying there, by others also intensifying their activities. Till the time they stop shouting warnings, I think that till then the intensification should remain and continue to build up. Calling off the bluff for once is most important. I suppose short of war, you have to ensure that nowhere else China can start shouting warnings at independent countries who are also rightfully there.
Wing Commander Bakshi?
I thought we should have got over that island which was Papua New Guinea. They had made. Other countries should have now started advancing towards it. It's high time. We don't have to waste a single day. Every day wasted is a day lost. So please let this message go loud and clear. And for India, let us be ready.
Professor Nalapat, we wrap up with you, sir.
I want to say I agree 100% with my colleagues who are in the armed forces. A stitch in time saves 9. I can tell you, if this kind of activity is not stopped now, it will finally have to be confronted and stopped. And I can tell you the cost in human lives and the cost in lost progress will be several multiples of what it is today. So
Right.
The sooner action is done, the sooner a coalition is formed, the sooner we say enough is enough and take action. Today, let's be frank, we are running away from any real confrontation. We are simply doing symbolic gestures. The time for symbolism is over. The time for action is there. When you are confronted with action, the only reply has to be action.
Very good.
Absolutely, absolutely. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being a part of this lovely debate.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.